Norway, Germany on many academic and research-related assignments. He has successfully guided 12 PhD theses, 1 MPhil, and 60 MSc dissertations. Currently, 4 students are enrolled in PhD under his guidance. He has total citations of 3,016 to his credit, with an H index of 60 and I-10 index of 23. He has published extensively in journals of national and international repute, such as Global Environmental Change, Natural Hazard, Journal of Arid Environments, Journal of Geological Society of India, to name a few. So I welcome Professor Akram Javed in this subject refresher course and request you to, sir, please start your presentation and start your deliberations on this important topic. Professor Akram Javed.
Thank you very much, Dr. Arshad. In fact, I do not require such a long, introduction. I'm a very humble person, so whatever I am doing, little bit, it is due to only the love to my alma mater, and students are my strength. So therefore, I take a lot of strength from my students as well. So a very good morning to all of you.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good
morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning,
Good
and
morning,
this is
sir.
my second lecture.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning,
Before
sir.
also. Today, I'm going to talk about global climate change. Right. So, this particular topic is not related or maybe confined to the academics and researchers. This topic has acquired so much attention that even politicians, industrialists, the business houses, right, political parties, they all are involved globally from one country to another country because this particular topic is going to affect every aspect of our life, whether it is agriculture, whether it is water resources, whether it is business, whether it is trading, whether it is power generation. So each and every aspect of human life is going to be adversely affected with the ongoing changes in the climate regime, which we have already seen, and we have been listening, we have been reading in newspapers and magazines and other articles how our climate change is impacting different aspects of life. So today, what I'll do, I will just show you some of the important causes, then some of the observations which have been carried out globally, some of the researchers which have carried out extensive research, their findings, and what is possibly in store for us in future also. So how it is going to affect humankind globally, as well as we will touch upon the how it is going to affect our country as well, because as we all know that India is an agri-based country. Our economy is basically agriculture-based. So this climate change is going to affect heavily on agriculture. So with this brief, introduction, let me begin my presentation and let me share you some slides. Is the slide visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Visible.
So the topic is global climate change, causes, evidences, and impacts. Now, first of all, what is climate change? So in short, or in the simplest term, it can be described as any long-term changes in the Earth's atmosphere which affects the living being on the Earth. So this is the most basic definition of climate change. That is, we call it long-term changes. Short-term changes we generally refer as weather. But when we talk about climate, so it means long-term changes. Now, changes in the Earth's climate system are governed by 3 important aspects, 3 important parameters. What are those? Records of change in global ice volume. How much ice volume is present on the surface of the Earth? That describes the climate, one of the important factors. The next is sea surface temperature. As we all know that Earth's surface, the super Earth surface is covered with water. So therefore, the surface temperature of the sea and oceans play a very important role in having the climate of the Earth. And finally, atmospheric composition. How much GHG emissions? Please switch off your mic, please. Mute your mic. Atmospheric composition. So this is a very important aspect because human intervention is all addressed to the atmospheric composition. We have been releasing a huge amount of GHG into the atmosphere, which is changing the composition of the atmosphere. So these are the three important records of change in global ice volume, sea surface temperature, and atmospheric composition. So what we are going to address, what are the evidences? How can we say that it is changing? Then what are the causes of this particular phenomena? What are the possible effects? And what are the possible solutions which we can address in this particular aspect? So atmosphere, oceans, ice sheet, and parts of the climate system. Please, who is this? Can anybody request him to mute the mic?
Shadab sir, please mute yourself. Shadab sir.
Sir, please mute yourself, please.
Shadab sir, if you are listening, sir, please mute yourself.
Ahmed sir, please mute yourself.
Now, sir, please.
शादा साहब म्यूट कर लें अपने आपको. रुपिन दास, प्लीज म्यूट योरसेल्फ. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So atmosphere, oceans, ice sheets, and biosphere are parts of the climate system, and therefore changes in any one of these components will lead to changes in the other components. Changes in the climate of the Earth during the past few decades have become the focus of scientific, political, and social attention. Now, this particular topic or this particular science has become the hot topic for politics, business, research, bilateral and multilateral talks, trade, and industry. Now, I'll tell you a very simple example, and which you all, most of you must have noticed and will notice in the coming few months.
Sir, slides are not changing.
Slides are not changing.
Not moving,
Yes,
sir.
Not moving, sir.
Yes, sir. Not moving.
Okay. I'll just
Slides are not moving.
I will stop it and then again change it. Is it changing now?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
I think it on full screen it is not changing. So I will just stick to it.
Oops.
Yeah. So what I was telling you that this particular topic is there in almost all the countries. Now, after a few months, we are going to have this the US presidential election. And one debate has already taken place between the two contestants there. And so in the subsequent debate, you will see that this topic will be addressed thoroughly. The interviewer and the people there present, audience will ask, what is your policy on climate change? I'm sure, because that was there 4 years back also, it was there 8 years back also. So it is a very important topic in the West, but unfortunately in Southeast Asia and in our countries, surrounding countries, this has no meaning. We have so many other irresponsible and topics to discuss in political arena, but this is very unfortunate. And you go to France, you go to Germany, you go to UK. This is one of the important topic and one of the important aspect in every political party and every political leader. So this is how this is going to affect the economy of the country, the business of the country, and finally the bilateral trade and so on and so forth. So climate changes is caused by factors that include oceanic processes such as oceanic circulation, biotic processes, variations in solar radiation received by Earth, plate tectonics activities and volcanic eruptions, and above all, human-induced alteration of the natural world. And there are 5 major factors that affect the climate change. These include latitude and elevation. At what latitude we are, that means geographical location. What is the elevation of the particular location above this sea level? Nearby water body, ocean currents, topography, and prevailing winds. So these are some of the important factors which decide the climate of a region. The global climate system and any changes that occur within it also influence local climate. So a simplified animation of the greenhouse effect, scientists attribute the global warming trend observed since the middle 20th century to the human expansion of greenhouse effect. So whatever changes we have seen in the recent past is certainly, and most of the time it is derived by human-induced interference, warming that results when the atmosphere traps heat radiating from the surface of the Earth. So as per the 5th assessment report, this is a international body, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. This was founded by UN in early 1990s, and the mandate of this particular international body is to compile all the research going on worldwide and publish in the form of reports. So till now it has published 6 reports in a huge volumes of research findings throughout the world, and there are independent researchers about it is more than 1,300 across the world, which are divided into different groups, target groups. Some group work on atmospheric changes, some on sea level surface temperature, some on sea level rise, some on global warming. So there are number of researchers which work across the globe, and their findings and research findings are generally compiled in the form of a report. So this report concluded that more than 95% probability that human activities over the far past 50 years have warmed the climate. So as far as the global warming is concerned, human-induced interference or human-induced actions are more responsible. The industrial activities that our modern civilization depends upon have raised atmospheric carbon dioxide level from 280 parts per million to 440 parts per million. We will see some graph later on that how it has changed CO2 in our atmosphere. So this shows the global surface temperatures, and there are 4 graphs here. You can see black color indicates observations, gray color indicates all factors, red color indicates anthropogenic factors, human factors, and blue color indicates natural factors. And you can see here that from 1950 or maybe later on, from 2000s onward, there is a steep increase in the global temperature change, which we have seen worldwide. And these are the observations, black color, and this anthropogenic factors responsible for this change in temperature is represented by red line. So you can see there is a steep increase from 2000 onwards, and it is still continuing. Now, another important aspect, that how much change has taken place in the global climate, global temperature worldwide in terms of degrees Celsius. And this is the blue line indicates the 12-month running mean, and the red line indicates 132 months running mean. And you can see here that post 1980, there is a substantial increase in the temperature anomaly up to 2020. The data shows, and we have put so much amount of GHG emissions into the atmosphere that there is increase in the temperature globally, and this phenomena is particularly very much visible for the last 20 or 30 years. This shows how much CO2 we have put into the atmosphere. And again, you can see there is a sharp increase from 1990 onwards. And we are having a very high level. Current level is this, putting a lot of CO2 into the atmosphere, which is changing the composition of the atmosphere, resulting in the rise in the temperature globally. Now, what are the causes or drivers of climate change? Increase in GHG emissions, of course, CO2 and other GHG gases, which we are putting into the atmosphere. Increase in the temperature of oceans and on land. There is a concept of, you must have heard, the urban heat island. Urban heat island term has been used for mega cities where this temperature has substantially increased, abruptly has increased continuously for the past 1 decade or so. And these kind of urban island term used for mega cities such as Delhi, Mumbai, Canberra, and then some parts of Western Europe, also US. So these are the cities where a lot of concretization has taken place, vegetation cover has gone, and as a result, there is perceptible heat, which is very high compared to the surrounding areas. So these urban island heat island concept has been there for a very recent time, and people are working on these aspect urban heat island, what are the causes and how we can address these kind of mega cities. So the next is change in the land use land cover. Much of the land use land cover in every part of the world has been changing. Forest reduction in forest cover. There is a continuous, degradation of the cultivated land, urban expansion, setting up industries, so on and so forth. Industrialization is another factor where large tract of land has been put into various kinds of industrial processes. Burning of fossil fuel, a very important and burning topic across the world, and all efforts of humankind, the government across the world, various agencies are addressed to this burning of fossil fuel. There has been emphasis to reduce the consumption of petrol and diesel, switching to the cleaner fuel, for instance LNG, for instance e-vehicles. This is all solar panels. So this is all related to the phasing out of this burning of fossil fuel and thermal power plant also, because there is again a UN charter that which says that all the countries are supposed to dephase their thermal power plant by 2040 or 2050, and they should shift to the cleaner fuel, because this burning of coal produces a lot of CO2 as well. So this is burning of fossil fuel. Then next is volcanic eruptions. This is a natural process that can't do through it. Various gases and lot of amount of gases and tephra and tufts, they are put into the atmosphere due to the continuous volcanic eruptions, and then changes in the Earth's heat budget. This is also a natural phenomena which changes the heat budget of the Earth. So what are the most important causes of the climate change? Human activity is the main cause of climate change. People burn fossil fuel and convert land from forest to agriculture. Since the beginning of the industrial revolution, people have burned more and more fossil fuels and changed vast areas of land from forest to farmland. So this is happening in almost every country, every continent. Burning fossil fuels produces carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas. It is called a greenhouse gas because it produces greenhouse effect. We all know the greenhouse effect makes the earth warmer, and carbon dioxide is the main cause of human-induced climate change. It stays in the atmosphere for a very long time. Other greenhouse gas such as the nitrous oxide stay in the atmosphere for a long time as well. Now there is a term which sometimes we use, climate forces. So what are climate forces? Carbon dioxide and other substances are referred to as climate forces because they force or push the climate towards being warmer or cooler. They do this by affecting the flow of energy coming into and leaving the Earth's climate system. So for these kind of parameters, we refer them climate forces. Small changes in the sun's energy that reaches the Earth can cause some climate change, but since the industrial evolution, adding greenhouse gases has been over 50 times more powerful than the change in the Earth's sun's radiance. So hence we call that human intervention, human activities are more responsible for pushing this climate into this kind of disaster. The additional greenhouse gas in the atmosphere have a strong warming effect on Earth's climate. So future emissions of GHG, particularly carbon dioxide, will determine how much more climate change or climate warming occurs in future. That's why the UNFCCC or UN has put the limit of raising the global surface temperature 1.5 degrees Celsius. So this is as per Paris record, because the last time when this COP conference was held, this is conference of parties, which we call COP. So the COP conference, which was held in Paris in 2015, all the countries have agreed to put less and less amount of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, so that the temperature does not rise beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius. But unfortunately, it has already risen. So these are some indicators of warming world. Now coming to the evidence of climate change, how we can say that the phenomenon of climate change is actually and really there, and how we can prove and how we can substantiate. So the first is the global temperature rise. The planet's average surface temperature has risen by about 1.62 degree Fahrenheit since the late 19th century. A change driven largely by increase in the carbon dioxide and other human-induced emissions into the atmosphere. But there is a catch. Most of the warming occurred in the past 35 years. So that means the recent changes in the atmosphere, recent changes in the climate, is as a result of lot of human intervention, 35 years, with the 6 warmest years on record taking place since 2014. So in the last 10 years, we have 6 warmest year in the world recorded. So this certainly indicates that global warming has taken place, not in any part or specific part of the world, but throughout the world. Not only was since 2016 was the warmest year on record, but 8 of the 12 months that made up the year from January through September, with the exceptions of June, were the warmest on record. Now this record, I must say here, we have already broken in last year. February 2023 was the warmest February. July 2023 was the warmest July. So every year we are breaking the record of the previous years. You must have seen the news coming, the newspapers, news channels, and magazines that we have broken the record of the previous year, previous decade, so and so forth. So continuously and gradually, the world is, the Earth is warming gradually. We are breaking the previous records continuously. Now the next is warming oceans. Now, as we all know that about 70% of the Earth's surface is covered with oceans and seas, water bodies. So the warming of these surface, oceans and seas, plays a very significant role. So oceans have absorbed much of these increased heat, with the top 700 meters of ocean showing warming of more than 0.4 degree Fahrenheit since 1969. So oceans and seas have been warming gradually. As a result, there is a warming in the entire Earth. Now this data shows how the global surface temperatures anomalies have been there recorded and presented. So this is from Global Change Research Program of NOAA from US. You can see here that from 1880 to up to 1940, there was a negative changes, right? And as we move from 1940 onwards, especially you can see from 2000 to 2020, there is a continuously and steep rise in the global surface temperature difference, right? So as I said earlier, that during the last 2 or 3 decades, this phenomena is very pronounced. This phenomena is very attracting the attention of all the political parties and then business houses, researchers, academicians, and nations also. So during the last 20-30 years, this is very significant. This shows a difference from average temperature, degree Celsius. And now there are 3 figures shown in this particular graph. The black line shows the model past warming. Blue line indicates if there is a decrease in reduction. If the entire countries, all the countries worldwide, they are working to curb the CO2 emissions, aggressive emission reductions. So what is going to happen? And the red line indicates if whatever is there is continue as business as usual. No, nothing change. Whatever amount of CO2 we are putting today, we continue to put it during the last 50 years or 80 years. So what's going to happen? So you can see if we do not change, so the situation is very alarming. There is a steep rise. See, we are going to hit about 4 degrees Celsius change in the global surface temperature. And with this global surface temperature change, many lives will vanish from the Earth's surface. So that's the kind of scenario we are going to have during the next 50 or 80 years. So there is a lot of efforts are required from our end to reduce the emissions so that the future generations are safe and we can have a very safe future for the next generations. Now, another important evidence, declining ice, Arctic sheet ice. Both in the extent and thickness of Arctic Sea ice has been seen over the last several decades. You must have read news off and on. There is a news that a very big chunk of ice has been detached from the Antarctic land, from Arctic land, and it is floating on the sea surface. It's going to melt in another month or another 4 or 6 weeks. So this is continuously happening phenomena. Declining Arctic and Antarctic ice sheet. Decreased snow cover. Satellite observations throughout the world reveal that amount of spring snow cover in the northern hemisphere has decreased over the past 5 decades, and that the snow is melting faster. Snow is melting earlier. Whether it is Himalayas, whether it is Andes, whether it is other mountains of the world, this is the global phenomenon, that there is a decrease in the snow cover in the Earth's surface. Another important evidence is global sea level rise. We all know that sea level is rising in various parts of the world. And global sea level rose about 8 inches in the last century. The rate in the last 2 decades, however, is nearly doubled that of the last century and is accelerating slightly every year. So you can see the rate of acceleration. It has increased, or it has doubled in the last 2 decades. So that means the changes have taken place much faster during the last 2 to 3 decades, as I have already said earlier. So there is a global sea level rise, and as a result, small island nations, coastal areas, they will be adversely affected. And some time back, in Maldives, the government of Maldives, conducted its cabinet meeting under the sea in order to draw the attention of the world that we are a small nation, we are a small country, and if the efforts are not undertaken, so we will, vanish from the map from the world. So these island nations are at very high risk. Then the glacial retreat. Glaciers throughout the world, they have been shrinking in their area. The studies carried out by various researchers in Himalayan mountains, in Andes, in rocky areas, in Alaska, in Africa, in Alps, they all indicate that glaciers have been reducing in their area and extent. If we talk about India, so Gangotri Glacier is a very famous one. All of you must have heard its name. It has been reducing, it has been shrinking at a very alarming rate of 10 to 12 inches per year. Similarly, Dugriani Glacier, similarly other glaciers in the northeast and the Himalayas, they are continuously declining, reducing in their area, melting faster. And according to one of the studies carried out earlier, that all these glaciers from the Himalayan region, they will vanish by 2040. So you can imagine that if all glaciers have gone by 2040, there will be no water in the Ganges and Yamuna and Brahmaputra and all these rivers, which are our source of life. So this is again another very important evidence and very important factor of leading to the changes in the climate regime, retreating glaciers. This shows how Antarctic ice mass have been reducing in its extent and area. So Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets have decreased in mass. Data from NASA's Gravity Recovery and Climate Experiment shows that Greenland has lost about 286 billion tons of ice per year between 1993 and 2016. 287 billion tons of ice in 13 years only, while Antarctica has lost about 127 billion tons of ice per year during the same period. So you can imagine the amount of ice sheet reducing from our Earth's surface, and this is one of the important aspects, one of the challenging tasks for the humankind. And this is how our Earth is warming faster, and we are having these disasters due to this. The rate of Antarctica ice mass loss has tripled in the last decade. This is another important point. So people are studying, researchers all over the world, they are continuously, observing these masses shrinking of glacier. They are recording the data, they are observing the changes, and finally they are predicting, they are finally coming out there with their results. Extreme events, another important indicator that we all know that there are number of heat waves seen across the globe, number of floods, disastrous flood occurring in various parts of the earth, then cyclones affecting the various countries and continents, earthquakes, droughts, so on and so forth. So the number of record high temperature events in the United States has been increasing, while the number of record low temperature events have been decreasing. So this is a direct evidence of how global warming has taken place, how these global surface temperatures have been rising. The US has also witnessed a decreasing number of intense rainfall events. Now, most of you might be knowing it, that last year and before last year, Europe has seen very extreme heat wave. France, Italy, Spain, they have observed a heat wave and recorded this temperature close to 50 degrees Celsius, where hundreds of people have died. It was never seen before in the history. So the places, the countries which were not known for this kind of temperature, this kind of heat, are slowly and gradually becoming very hot. So this is very important. Similarly, here in India also, we have seen so many heat events, extreme heat events in the Telangana, in the southern part of India, and this is continuously seen throughout the Asia and other parts of the world. So these extreme events are very important, and it indicates the change in the climatic regime of the surface of the Earth. Now, another important aspect is flood. Flood, we have seen flood in various parts of the earth, and the frequency of flood have increased in every part of the earth. And we have seen in India also floods in the South India, then Northern India, then Eastern India. There have been number of floods, devastating floods in surrounding countries as well. And their frequency as well as the intensity has increased throughout the world. Similarly, cyclone. We have seen so many cyclones, typhoons, tornadoes in one part of the another part of the world. Similarly, forest fires. These all indicates the change in the climate regime. So these are extreme events. Then other is ocean acidification. Since the beginning of the industrial revolution, the acidity of surface of ocean waters has increased by about 30%. This increase is the result of humans emitting more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and hence more being absorbed into the oceans. The amount of carbon dioxide absorbed by upper layer of the ocean is increased by about 2 billion tons per year. So that is the kind of ocean acidification which is taking place. Now, what are the evidences? We have discussed in detail. So change in sea level, shrinking of glaciers, rising temperatures, global warming, decline or excess rainfall, shifting of flora and fauna. At many places, they say flora and fauna have shifted towards the higher altitude region. The species which are found at lower altitude, subsequently we are finding it at the higher altitude. That means for those flora and fauna, the kind of temperature, the kind of climate regime is no more suitable for them. So therefore, they are shifting from one place to another place, from lower altitude to higher altitude. So this is another important evidence that flora and fauna have been shifting from lower to higher altitude in order to adjust themselves. Increase in frequency of disasters, we have already discussed it, floods, earthquakes and cyclones, extreme heat events, and change in Earth's atmospheric composition. Now, how it's going to impact? Climate change is going to impact water resources, it's going to impact agriculture, it's going to impact wildlife and ecology, it's going to impact land use, land cover, and health and livelihood as well. There is a lot of emphasis on improving the health and the livelihood of the people, and because of the changing in climate, these two sectors have drawn so much attention worldwide. Then there are organization and treaties which work on this particular very important aspect. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, as I said earlier, it's a UN body, and it works thoroughly, very actively throughout the world, and it compiles all the research going on worldwide in publishes in the form of a report. United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, another important body which was formed after Rio Summit in 1992, and it is also addressing various issues of the climate change. There are national and regional level organizations working for this cause. Some of the very milestone in curbing the climate change, these are Kyoto Protocol, held in 1996 at a place Kyoto in Japan, where it was decided that all the nations will curb the CO2 emissions and reduce the CO2 emissions to the pre-1990 level, and it was put in place because for years together, US did not sign this protocol. They continue to evade this protocol, but finally the good sense prevailed, and US signed the Kyoto Protocol. Now, 2015 Paris Accord has not been signed by US, and recently this Trump has said in one of the speeches that he is not going to sign the Paris Accord of 2015. So again, there is bottlenecks in and US is the biggest bottleneck in any kind of multilateral treaties and international treaties. So therefore, Paris Accord has also not been signed by US. There is a Bali Declaration, another important declaration, Copenhagen Declaration, Doha Round Talk, and Rio 20 Summit. These are some of the milestones in these. Paris 2015 is another one. Now, if we talk about climate change in India, so there is no other man other than the dawn of our climate change aspect in India, Dr. R.K. Pachauri. And he was the person who introduced the term climate change in India. And upon his insistence, the government of India changed the ministry's name from Ministry of Environment and Forest to Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So this climate change has added in the ministry itself. He was the Director General of TERI, and I am very fortunate enough to have worked with him for about 5 to 6 years. And he was one of the authority on the climate change. Whatever he said was the last line on climate change, especially in India and at the global level as well. He was also the chairman of IPCC for 2 terms, and you would be surprised to know that when second time he stood for the chairmanship of the IPCC, there was a contest between him and a person of US origin, US national, and he defeated the US national in that particular body. So he got a lot of support from Southeast Asian nations and Middle East nation, and he was again elected to the chair of the IPCC. So he passed away in 2020. He was one of the renowned scientists, and government of India owed a lot of economic activities and other to him. So if we talk about India, so India accounts for about 4.5% of the world greenhouse gases. So it plays a very crucial role in combating climate change. And because of the risk of flooding and high temperatures, perhaps no country has a greater incentive to slow global warming. Since our country is very high risk due to floods, cyclones, landslides, droughts. So every disaster, you name a disaster, our country is prone to that disaster. So its objective is to stabilize the greenhouse gas concentration in the atmosphere. In 2017, the largest per capita CO2 producers included the US, Middle East countries like Qatar, UAE, and Saudi Arabia. But in terms of overall emissions, China, US, India, Russia, and Japan will all rank 5 largest emitters. So these are the countries which have largest emissions, CO2 emissions in the atmosphere. Now, there are some of the evidences, facts, and figures. The research carried out world over, how they have put their research into figures and facts. The global average surface temperature has increased over the 20th century by about 0.2 to 0.6 degrees Celsius, and rise in sea level of 10 to 20 centimeters. 1990s has been the warmest decade on record, and 1998 was the warmest year. Now this record, 1990's record, has already been broken thrice. So January 2023 has been the warmest January on record. Another facts and figure, North Pole ice has shrunk by 40% in the recent decades in summer and autumn. That is a kind of ice volume we have lost in the last decades. Global snow cover has shrunk by about 10% since 1960s, and mountain glaciers, especially from the Alps, Andes, and Himalayas, have sharply retreated. They have reduced in their area and extent. There has been loss of Antarctic ice reported in the recent past. Rainfall has increased by about 5 to 10% over the 20th century in the northern hemisphere, but it has decreased in the North and West Africa and parts of Mediterranean. So northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere, they are behaving differently. In one part of the hemisphere, there is an increase in the rainfall leading to the floods, whereas in other hemisphere, In other parts of the world, there is a substantial decline in the rainfall, leading to the droughts and other related phenomena. Summers have been drier with droughts in some parts of Africa and Asia, droughts becoming more frequent and intense in the last few decades. Now, some of the statistics of major flood disasters, that they have increased right from 7. There were 7 major flood disasters in 1960s worldwide, 8 in 1970s, 26 in 1990s, 38 in 2000, and 46 in 2010. So you can see how the frequency of major flood disasters have increased during the last 40 or 50 years. Now, some of the future projections. People, once they have collected the data, they have analyzed the data, and now they are projecting what's going to happen for the next 30 years, 40 years or so. How the trend will be there if we continue like this. So some of the projections here, global warming is likely to reach 1.5 degrees Celsius between 2030 and 2050, but I must tell you, we have already crossed it. We have crossed this threshold limit of 1.5 degree now in 2023 itself. 2030 is still 6 years away. So it is we are going to have more warming in the coming years. Global mean surface temperature for the decade 2006 and 15 was 0.8 degrees 7 Celsius higher than the average of 1850-1900. So whatever we could achieve in 50 years, we have already achieved in 10 years period. जितना टेम्परेचर 50 साल में बढ़ा था, हमने वो 10 साल में बढ़ा दिया. That's the kind of phenomena which is we are going to witness now and in future. Estimated anthropogenic global warming is currently increasing at 0.2 degrees Celsius per decade due to the emissions. And warming is generally higher over the land than the ocean. So land surface is warming much faster than the oceans. Temperature extreme on land are projected to warm middle latitude regions by about 3 degrees Celsius. So middle latitude region, tropical regions, subtropical region, they are going to have much more warming than the polar and subpolar regions. Number of hot days are projected to increase in most land regions, with highest increase in the tropics. Human activities are estimated to have caused approximately 1 degree Celsius global warming above pre-industrial level. High mean temperature is expected in most of the land regions than the oceans. Heavy precipitation will be there in several regions. Hot extreme events will be seen in most of the inhabited regions. Droughts and precipitation deficit in some of the regions, and number of hot days are expected to increase in most of the regions, especially in the tropics. Now, according to the NOAA 2019 Global Climate Summary, the combined land and ocean temperature has increased at an average rate of 0.0 degree 7 Celsius per decade since 1880. But at the average rate of increase between 1991 and 81 is twice to that of the earlier one. NASA has also found that 2010-19 was the hottest decade ever recorded. Scientists from the United Kingdom Meteorological Office determined that 2019 was one of the top 3 hottest years on record. And another agency, World Meteorological Organization, also ranked 2019 as the second warmest year for the globe. Another important aspect, last year, July 2023, warmest month on record, and February 2023, warmest February on record. So we are breaking every year the records of the previous years. Now, some of the important points and important observation over India. How our country is going to face and how our country is going to fare about on this important aspect. The most serious climate change risk to the human economy and its people is the increased intensity, frequency, and geographical coverage of drought. Higher temperatures, increased evapotranspiration, and decreased winter precipitation may bring about more droughts. The average surface temperature in the country is expected to rise by 4.5 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. This is the projection for India. By the end of the century, we are going to have 4.4 degrees Celsius increase in temperature. Even if emissions do fall moderately in the next few decades, temperature in India could still rise by an average of 2.4 degrees Celsius between 2070 and 2019. Now, India has produced a very exhaustive report by Ministry of Sciences. This report is titled Assessment of Climate Change over Indian Region. This report was released in June 2020. The warming is and will be gradual according to this report. In the high emission scenarios, the report says that land surface temperature over India could rise by about 2.7 degrees Celsius in the next 50 years, which is a very huge, very steep rise in the temperature. In the moderate emission scenarios, temperature could rise by about 2 degrees Celsius. So to put this into the another UN report of 2019 has said that the global temperature rise should be kept 1.5 degrees Celsius. This is what we have, all the nations have taken a pledge in Paris 2015. In 1986, 2000, temperature of the warmest day and the coldest day in a year increased by about 0.6 degree and 0.4 degrees Celsius respectively in India. The frequency of heat waves during the summer will also increase between 3 and 4 times. The average duration is likely to double by 2100. We all have seen that if there is a heat wave, it continues for days, for weeks together. The temperature continues to hover around 48 degree, 49, 50 weeks together. So then these summer heats and these extreme events, they are prolonging in their period. Earlier it used to be a 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Now it's going to 2 months and 2.5 months. So extreme events and these heat events, they are prolonging in their duration. The report also noted that the average surface air temperature in India has already increased by 0.7 degrees Celsius. There are clear signatures of human-induced changes in the climate over the Indian region in recent decades, as evidenced by observations, analysis, data sets, and climate models. India has already witnessed extreme weather events at an increasing rate in the last few years. For example, the number of heavy rainfall days exceeding 150 millimeters in central India have climbed by an alarming 75% during the 2015. In the same period, overall monsoon precipitation in parts of central India has also declined by 10 to 20%. Overall monsoon precipitation in India, which contributes to more than 75% of the country's annual rainfall, between 1951 and 2015 has declined by about 6%, especially in the densely populated Indo-Gangetic plains and Western Ghats. So there is a 6% decline in the annual rainfall, and that too especially in the Indo-Gangetic plain, which is known as a food belt for India. You can imagine that if there is a less rainfall in the Gangetic plain, it's going to affect our agriculture, and our livelihood system will be reduced to rubbles. We won't be able to feed the 134 crores of people for their food grains. However, in future, India is expected to have more rainfall every year, both monsoonal and non-monsoonal. The monsoon season is likely to become longer thanks to climate change, and this will lead to floods in some parts of India. Flooding, is expected to rise particularly in the Himalayan river basins, Indus, Ganges, and Brahmaputra. While on the other hand, the frequency of flood is predicted to rise Drought severity and frequency too are also expected to become more common. Number of consecutive days, dry days, is expected to increase because annual rainfall will be spread for fewer days than compared to the earlier one. India's northwest, Gangetic Plains, and central India could experience more than 2 droughts every decade. This report says the area will be affected by drought, likely to increase by 150 by 2100. In the last 2 decades, 2000 to 2018, there has been a significant rise in the frequency of very severe cyclonic storms, like Cyclone Gaja. Recently, we have cyclone in eastern India, and before that, there was a very powerful cyclone in the western coast. So, in winter seasons, we are going to have these cyclones. The frequency will certainly going to increase on these coastal regions. More tropical cyclones are going to born in northern Indian Ocean with greater intensity in the decades to come. Finally, there are the rising sea levels. Waters in the northern Indian Ocean rose from 1.06 to 1.75 millimeter per year between 1874 and 2005. But from 1993 onwards, up to 2005, in 9 years period, 12 years period rather, the annual average rise climbed to 3.3 millimeter per year. You can see just doubled in 12 years time. This figure is about the same as the average annual global sea level rise today. So that means India and coastal districts of India are going to have a very severe effect of the sea level rise as a result of global warming and climate change. Sea level is rising because sea ice and glaciers are melting faster. We all know, according to the report, the dominant causative factor is in the Indian Ocean is thermal expansion and water expansion and heating up. The water along India's coast is expected to rise by about 20 to 30 centimeters by 2100, leading to low-lying coastal zones, especially on India's east coast, may witness rising sea level, damaging the property, infrastructure, and leading to groundwater salinity. The report said. A rise in cyclone intensity is also likely to result in the increasing inundation from accompanying storms, surges, and other adverse effects. Now, there are several studies which have been taken up by many institutes in India about the sea level impact of sea level rise on Indian coast. There was a study conducted by IIT Mumbai in collaboration with TERI, where they classified the all coastal districts of India, which are about 56 in numbers, depending upon their vulnerability, depending upon their risk to sea level rise. And they have come out with some findings that how much infrastructure will be damaged in such areas, because we all know that coastal areas are well developed. We have ports, seaports there, we have refineries there, we have tourism there, we have other infrastructure, we have oil pipelines, so on and so forth. So how sea level rise is going to impact this infrastructure, leading to crushing of our economy. So they have classified the districts, coastal districts, into very low vulnerability, high vulnerability, and very high vulnerability. So this, if somebody is interested, it can log on to the TERI's website, and if you type some keywords, the report will be there. So it's one of the very important report which addresses the sea level rise in India. Now, the report has also warned that complex changes in climate pose risk to infrastructure, public health, and environment, which have the potential to hamper effects. Now, what are the then adaptation measures? How do we cope with this phenomena? Capacity building, that means training people, getting awareness to this particular phenomena, how to deal with it. Then shifting to the clean energy from the traditional fossil fuel. There has been a lot of efforts in this shifting of clean energy worldwide and in India also. Then low carbon emissions. We have some policy measures to reduce the carbon emissions into the atmosphere. Some of the issues related to afforestation. We should plant more number of trees. We should plant trees and other species on barren land. So this is another important aspect. Then there is a curve on land use, land cover change. So the change from one land use to another land use should be restricted, and it should not be allowed unless and until it is very extremely necessary. Watershed management has come as a very important tool to address the issues of climate change, and through this method, we generally manage our water resources at the watershed level. Soil conservation measures, then groundwater targeting and groundwater recharge method, improvement in the soil fertility. So these are all aspects are addressed into watershed management, and then finally sustainable agriculture through the watershed management and other related issues, so on and so forth. Now, some of the important aspects, how it is going to impact individual sectors. Some of the points are listed here. If we talk about agriculture, so according to a report published by Food and Agricultural Organization, FAO, there will be 18% reduction in cereal production in India. This is a very challenging and very worrying figure, that if 18% reduction in cereal production, so that means our food security will be at high risk if this happens. Then there will be decline in crop yield of food grains across various states. There have been studies carried out in Punjab, in Haryana, in Maharashtra, and UP and Madhya Pradesh, how individual crops are going to be affected by this changing in the climate regime. Rainfare agriculture will certainly be severely affected by this. Water resources, many water river basins will face acute shortage of water, and on the other hand, some basins will have excess water leading to floods. Wildlife and ecology will be adversely affected, shifting of flora and fauna, and migration and extinction of species. Then way forward, global initiatives, pacts and treaties. We have already signed so many pacts and treaties. We have discussed Kyoto Protocol, Bali Declaration, Paris Accord, so on and so forth. United Nations Framework Convention, which we generally call Rio Summit in 1992, Kyoto Protocol of 1997, which came into force only in February 2005 after US signed it. Then IPCC formed in 1988, and it won the Nobel Prize. And at that time, Dr. Pachauri was the chairman of the IPCC, so he led this Nobel Prize for this particular agency. Then there is a COP conference held every year. Last year it was held in Dubai. This year it's going to happen in some, I think, Uzbekistan or somewhere in this Central Asian Republic. So then we have this Paris Agreement, most recent one. This shows the, I think it may not be readable for you, the timeline for climate change, various treaties signed, various conferences held, declarations held, and so on and so forth. So what can be done about climate change? Carbon dioxide is the main cause of human-induced global warming and associated climate change. It is very long-lived gas, which means carbon dioxide builds up in the atmosphere with ongoing human emissions and remains in the atmosphere for centuries. So global warming can only be stopped by reducing global emissions of carbon dioxide from human fossil fuel consumption and industrial processes to zero. But even with zero emissions, the global temperatures will remain essentially constant. Emissions of other substances that warm the climate must also be substantially reduced. This indicates how difficult the challenge is. So this is all from my side. Thank you very much for your patience listening. And if there are some questions, then I will certainly take it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any questions or maybe some comment?
Hello.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sanjeev Porwal. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah.
सर एग्रीमेंट्स लगातार हो रहे हैं, सब काम पेपर पर हो रहा है, लेकिन फॉसिल फ्यूल कंजम्पशन तो लगातार बढ़ते ही जा रहे हैं और किसी भी नेशन का इंडेक्स ऑफ डेवलपमेंट भी अब यही हो गया कि वो कितना फॉसिल फ्यूल कंज्यूम कर रहा है एट दिस टाइम। तो ये तो एकदम से कंट्रोवर्शियल, एक अपोजिट है, कॉन्ट्रास्टिंग है एकदम। डेवलपमेंट को हम फॉसिल फ्यूल कंजम्पशन से मेजर करते हैं और उधर हम फैक्ट्री करते हैं।
Actually, there are so many players involved. Government भी है, business sectors भी है, companies भी हैं, industries भी हैं, right? Trading agencies भी हैं. Now every government is trying its best level. हम यहाँ भी आपने देखा होगा कि हिंदुस्तान में भी अब आ रहा है धीरे धीरे ईवी का रिवाज आ रहा है ना। इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल्स लोग खरीद रहे हैं, चाहे वो स्कूटर हो, चाहे वो कार हो। ग्रेजुअली सब्सटेंशियली वी विल गो। ये ऑल ऑफ ए सडन चेंज तो नहीं आएगा, लेकिन हाँ धीरे धीरे आएगा। सोलर पैनल देखिए लोगों ने लगवाने शुरू कर दिए है ना, तो कंजम्पशन ऑफ इलेक्ट्रिसिटी भी है। वी आर शिफ्टिंग टुवर्ड्स द क्लीनर फ्यूल, एलएनजी भी कहीं कहीं इस्तेमाल होता है। तो थिंग्स आर चेंजिंग बट नॉट सो फास्ट।
एक चीज ऐसा है, ये सोलर पैनल हमारे उसमें आ गए हैं, लेकिन अभी तक इनके डिस्पोज ऑफ करने का कोई इस तरह से स्कीम नहीं आया है। जैसे गाड़ियों के लिए अब आ रहा है, वो वेट ले रहे हैं, 25 साल बाद ही हमारे पास इतना ज्यादा इकट्ठा हो जाएगा, इसको हमें डिस्पोज ऑफ करने के लिए पॉलिसी बनानी पड़ेगा।
हाँ
ऐसा कुछ है नहीं।
गवर्नमेंट इज वर्किंग, इंटरनेशनल लेवल पर भी चल रही है और रिसर्च भी चल रही है। कोई ना कोई सॉल्यूशन जरूर निकलेगा। लेट अस वेट फॉर न्यू ईयर्स। तो नई टेक्नोलॉजी आती है तो उसके साथ साथ उसके सॉल्यूशन भी आते हैं, तो आएंगे। तो लेट अस होप फॉर द बेस्ट।
Sir, good afternoon, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you for your lecture, and your lectures are always very up to date and insightful, sir. I have a question, sir. Actually, when we talk about climate change, we talk about climate refugee also nowadays. So, how far the human beings have become climate refugee nowadays? Yes, sir.
मंडल साहब आप म्यूट करिए जरा। मंडल साहब, हाँ, यस, डॉक्टर सुनीता, गो अहेड। डॉक्टर सुनीता, गो अहेड।
यस सर, गुड आफ्टरनून सर। क्लाइमेट चेंज की हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं सर, लेकिन हमें ऐसा नहीं लगता कि सपोज हम लोग घर में 4 मेंबर्स हैं, हमारे पास मोर देन मतलब 4 से ज्यादा व्हीकल घर में रखे, तो वी आवरसेल्व्स आर रिस्पांसिबल फॉर दिस टाइप ऑफ इमिशन सर। तो सर जब हम लोग इतने नहीं कंट्रोल कर पा रहे हैं, तो सर हाउ इट कैन बी मैनेज?
See, every individual has to take, as a personal issue. This can be tackled from the personal to the national to the local
yes, sir,
and to global level. So it starts from the individual house, individual self level.
This is the thing. Okay, thank you, sir.
Any other observation?
Yes, sir. I want to. I was asking a question, sir.
बताइए.
Sir, during this era of climate change, we are talking of climate refugee, quote unquote. So, can you cite some examples of climate refugee in case of human beings? Actually, we know that there are so many animals who are suffering from this status of being climate refugee. But can you please cite some examples in case of human beings? That's my question, sir.
See, human being, in fact, climate refugees, they had been, not much has been documented about them till now, because all the efforts are related to the how to curb the CO2 emissions and how to reduce the impact on the human being. But as far as the climate refugees are concerned, this I would rather shift it toward the war zones and all those aspects. So conflict, climate conflict or war zones, they are considered to be one of the hottest spots in that sense. And we all know that when there is a conflict between two nations or two, what happens to the human being, and they go and to move to the safer areas and very inhospitable conditions, but they suffer badly in terms of this climate and other aspect of.
So, sir, that is a kind of socio-political issue.
Yeah,
But
right,
what is,
right.
but sir, what is the my question is, what is its relation with the climate change? Actually, the example you have just given us, actually, what is the relation between climate change? That's a socio-political issue. Yeah, throughout the whole world, we are watching that these kind of issues are going on.
Yeah. See,
But
see the local level at local level, we can call it at a migration, right? You know that people migrate due to floods, due to the droughts, due to the other severe conditions, from because there is nothing left to them to fend to themselves, to feed themselves, right? So as a result of this, as a result of the distress, they migrate from one district to another district, from one state to another state, from one region to another region. So that kind of category we can put into the climate refugees as well.
okay, so this field is yet to be explored.
Right,
sir?
right, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for your observation and lecture once again.
Welcome.
Take respect, sir.
Okay, then if there are no more questions, then wish you all the best and have a nice time ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.